Are you handling a State Farm supplemental insurance claim? Roof damage, fire damage, water damage, wind damage, hurricane damage, hail damage? I want to talk to you specifically about dealing with State Farm. Chad Michael here, coming at you from Dallas, Texas. I'm starting something new today with this video. I'm going to start some new videos in a series that specifically addresses individual insurance companies specifically. Like if you're filing a supplemental request with an insurance company for a specific insurance job, roofing job, water damage, fire damage, wind damage, hail damage, hurricane damage, if you are about ready to file a supplemental request with a specific insurance company, I want to start doing videos to give you advice on how to deal with each individual specific insurance company wherever possible, so that you can end up at a better place. Also so that you can deal with less friction, less resistance, less delay, deny, defend from the insurance companies. Now I'm going to start with State Farm. It seems like State Farm has the most of the lion's share, the market share out there when it comes to residential property damage claims. And I've seen a lot of commercial claims with State Farm also, but there's no question that they have the majority of the claims by far, the majority of the policies out there. So it's been like this for years. I've seen State Farm more than I have any other insurance company. And one of the things about State Farm being so big like that is that you're probably not going to deal with the same desk adjuster. Like if you call in to the inside of State Farm, you're probably not going to get the same desk adjuster more than once, really ever. And I've been doing this 20 plus years, and it's rare that I ever get the same adjuster. It's rare that I ever get the same field adjuster. But that is, if you're in a smaller town or a more rural area, then it's certainly more common to have to deal with the same adjuster, on every claim or on the majority of your claims. But in a place like Dallas here, and most metropolitan areas, most cities at all, they're going to have a lot of adjusters. One of the questions I get too is, can you be blacklisted by State Farm, or can you be blacklisted by insurance companies? I don't want to be on their blacklist, because I don't usually see the same adjuster more than once. I don't give a lot of credence to that idea. I don't think that ending up on a blacklist is very likely, especially not just for requesting supplemental monies. Like filing supplements on your deals is not going to get you on a blacklist. But if you're committing fraud, that would be one thing to get you on a blacklist, I would suppose. There are people out there manufacturing damage and doing other things and ripping off people. That might get you on a blacklist, but I don't think, I don't think I've ever heard of, especially State Farm, putting you on a blacklist for filing supplements, So I don't put a lot of credence in that idea. But one of the benefits of them being so big is you're probably not going to get the same adjuster. So I'll use this to my advantage. First and foremost, if you're new to the content, then you probably haven't heard me say before. If you're not new, if you've been watching this content for a while, then you've heard me say this a ton, which is the field adjuster. Normally, most of the time, generally speaking, I sort of view them as a pawn. I don't really view them as having a lot of power most of the time. And mostly when you're looking at these original Xactimate estimates that adjusters write, they're so short. They're missing so many items. It's a rush job, right? And then when you track down and you do the inspection, you figure out all of the missing items and you figure out everything needs to go into this estimate, and you go to contact the insurance company, probably that insurance adjuster that wrote that initial estimate is long gone. If it's State Farm, for sure they're long gone. So the biggest mistake you can make is to look at the first estimate that was written by State Farm, and this also applies to most other companies also. If you're looking at that original estimate, you're going to see the field adjuster's contact info on there, and you might have a tendency to want to, or you might have an impulse to want to send your estimate directly to that guy or gal, or to call them up, right? That's what you don't want to do. One thing to note, for a lot of insurance companies, when that first ACV check goes out with the estimate on any claim, like when the coverage is first approved and a check goes out, that's usually when it closes, so to speak, quote, closes, for the insurance adjuster. So like that's when, a lot of times they're independent, that's when they get paid, or they start to get credit for that pay, like it's going to go on their next pay period or a certain pay period. Or if they're a staff adjuster, they're getting credit of some sort. They're working off of bonuses, they're working off of internal directives on how many claims they have to get closed out on their team. There are always benefits to them to getting that claim closed. And in their mind, it's closed when that first payment goes out. So when you're trying to open up a supplement, a lot of times you're contacting them and you give them the claim number and they open it up and they're like, well, this claim's already closed. Okay, open it back up. So they, just because they're saying it's closed doesn't mean it's closed forever and all of that, right? A claim is never really closed until all of the repairs have been made and they've been paid for. So how many times can you file a supplement for State Farm and for really any insurance company? How many times can you send in a supplement request? As many times as necessary. That's the thing you got to understand. There's no like set rule of you can only file one supplement, or you can only file two, or you're only going to get so many checks. And that's the thing about appraisal that I'm not too keen on, is a lot of times with appraisals, you're only going to get one bite at the apple. Whereas with filing supplement requests, as a contractor, you can file that as many times as you need to, especially since if they ever send you over an estimate and they say, hey, sent you over an estimate, and I want to know if you accept it. Take a look at it, and if you agree, let me know, and I'll get the check sent out. No, I can't agree to anything, right? Because my job is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. That's my job as the contractor. That's what I was hired to do. My job is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. So I can't agree to anything as of yet, right? Like we have to vet this, we have to run it through our team, through our estimating staff, and do our due diligence before I could just agree to things, okay? But I will tell you this, my job is to perform all repairs prescribed by you. So we are going to move forward with the repairs, with the planning, with getting everything in line and starting the project. And if something comes up, I'll let you know. That would be what? That would be a supplement. Like, so if you're dealing with a supplement and this is how it goes, and they ask you to agree to something, don't agree to it. Tell them, send the check, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'll let you know if we have any problems with that. If something comes up, I'll let you know. And then what would you do? You'd be filing a supplement, another supplement, right? Now, with State Farm, because you don't want to send that estimate directly to the field adjuster, definitely do not send it to their email. Stay far away from that original field adjuster. And the only exceptions to that might be if you went and you met with that original field adjuster, on the field inspection, and you saw their estimate, and there's just like a couple things, and you had good rapport. You think you can call them quickly, not much later, but quickly right after he wrote the estimate, to ask him to add a couple things. There's no problem with that. But if you're trying to do this much later and trying to get the supplement opened up, that will annoy that adjuster. If they answer and see that you're calling about that claim, they're thinking, man, this is already closed. I'm not trying to open that up. So you're questioning them. So that's the wrong thing to do. That you don't want to send it to that adjuster. If it's State Farm, send an email to State Farm Fire Claims at statefarm.com. So State Farm Fire Claims, all one word, at statefarm.com. That's where you want to send all supplemental requests to State Farm. Okay, if you are calling them, use the 800 number that's on your paperwork and call in using that. Depending on where you are, they have different teams, okay? And one thing, sometimes I don't know which team that is assigned to this specific claim. So I'll just give them the wrong one, and I'll say, yeah, team 66, please, because team 66 was one of the teams. So because I don't know where you are watching this, that's what I recommend you do. Call the 800 number and ask for team 66. When you get through to that number and you give them the claim number, you should be talking to an inside desk adjuster at that point. And so that's how you call them, but to email them at statefarmfireclaims@statefarm.com. What I would do is I would send in, depending on what you are sending them, sometimes you want to send them an estimate. Sometimes, if you watch some of my other videos, I recommend not sending them your estimate. There's a lot of differences in the damages, which there usually are for me. Like if there's a lot of things that I found that are not showing up in that adjuster's report, then I would instead send them a photo report. And you could do this with Xactimate. You know, if you're loading your photos into your Xactimate estimates, when you go to export do the print report, you would just select only the cover page and the photos that are included, and that'll come out with a nice cover page that looks like Xactimate, but with all the photos behind it. And you could probably fit up to 1,000 or more photos, depending on what, how big your photos are, into this report, and send that all in one email very seamlessly. Like it'll all fit. It's compressed in a PDF, and that'll fit nicely. And I would email that to State Farm. Now, for some reason, it seems like State Farm, and I've heard this a lot, where when you do email them big photo reports like that, they come out in black and white on the other end. And they always say, oh, well, you send them to me in black and white. Can you send them to me in color? That's a silly thing for them to say, because they should already know it's not you doing it. It's their system that does it that way. So keep that in mind. It might not come out as good as what you're seeing in the photos, but I would send that in the subject line, just the claim number only, no dashes at all, but just the claim number only. I would send it in with return contact info and let them know what you want in the email. Let them know we've been hired as the contractor to perform all repairs that are prescribed by this claim. We're noticing in the adjuster's original estimate, it's missing all kinds of things, or whatever the case may be, or there's codes that come into play and it's preventing us from moving forward, or whatever the problem is, right? Attached is a photo report. We're asking that you review this. We're willing to answer any questions you might have. Please call us. Feel free to email us back. And we're also willing to meet you back out at the property if necessary. So if you'd like to send another adjuster, we'd be happy to meet him out there and get whatever answers we can for you. If you need us to go back out and get some other data for you, we'd be happy to do that, right? But send them a nice, diplomatic, professional email to that address. And sometimes they'll call you back within a day or so, and sometimes you won't hear anything. And if you waited, it might be weeks and they'll never call you, right? So these things the ball can get dropped. Like it could definitely fall through the cracks when you send that email in. So my kind of rule of thumb for me is I always wait about 48 hours. I always wait about 2 business days before I call them to follow up. And I just call them and say, yeah, my name's Chad with such and such contracting, and sent you here's the claim number. I open up like that. I say, I'm calling about claim number such and such. The name of the client is this, the address is this, and I'm Chad with such and such contracting, right? Otherwise they'll ask you questions and all that. I'm able to roll right into the issues if I get all that out of the way first. And we sent you an email the other day with a photo report asking you to review that. And I'm just calling to follow up to see if anyone's had a chance to review that. And if not, see what I might be able to do to get that reviewed. That usually goes over real well. Again, I'm probably calling Team 66 or whatever team, if I know where that is. But I'm calling the 800 number on the cover page of that estimate, and then asking for Team 6. You can sometimes press it in through the dial pad when you first get patched in, the greetings coming on, but Team 66, and then whoever answers it, I give them the claim number, roll into it, and I should be talking to an inside desk adjuster at that point. So that's part of it. That's part of the problem is just getting through to them a lot of the times, right? So that's part of it, but it is very important, because if you can't get through to the right people, you're never going to make progress on these claims. It's so crucial that you get it to the right place. You might call in and they say, we haven't received anything. Okay, do it again. Like, these are the frustrations that comes into play in the insurance restoration industry. but this is why we get paid the big bucks. It's worth it to go through these extra steps, right? Here's some more advice with State Farm specifically, though. If you are dealing with the desk adjuster on the phone, one piece of advice I give is I like to actually start off with a little bit of small talk with them and not get right into the issues. Because if it's somebody that's in a bad mood, or they're short with me, or they're cranky, I'm going to let them know I got to take care of something else and I'll call you back later. And I don't lie to them. Remember that. Never lie to an insurance company. So it's something I don't say like, hey, someone's at the door if nobody's at the door. It's a funny thing with me. I don't want to lie to an insurance company about anything. They ask me how I'm doing. Not very good. How about you? So I like to build a little rapport, first to see if I've got the right one on the phone, to try to get a little bit of feel for it. Sometimes you're not going to know that. I get it. But it is something I like to do. Now, follow that for a second, because if the phone call does not go well, right? I start getting into the issues and the phone call's not going well. Like they don't want to agree to things that are on the estimate, or they're pushing back on certain things, or they say that's not covered, or they don't want to send, somebody out for a reinspect, or for whatever reason, it's not going well. Or maybe they're reviewing my estimate and they agree to a number of things on my estimate, but they don't agree to the other things, right? And they might say, let us know if you agree to this and we'll send out a check. Can't agree to anything. It's the same thing over again, right? Just send the money. We'll get started with those repairs and let you know if anything comes up. I let them go ahead and release that estimate and release that check. And when the client gets it, I'm right back on the phone with them again, repeating the process. So sending in a new email to them, a new supplemental submission, and then calling up a couple days later and following up. Remember, now I'm on the phone with a different adjuster. So now it's like, hey, we did a supplement request a while back. I see that the adjuster, approved a few things, but everything looked good except for the following items they still have left out. They've missed the following. And then I bring those issues up with the next adjuster again. And I try to get that process to play out again to where they also will agree to those things as well. And sometimes that won't go good either, right? And you'll have to just go back and do it again. Or if the first time it didn't go right and they gave you answers you didn't want to hear, get off the phone with them, wait a little bit, do a new submission. So this is important too. Like, don't just do a new phone call. That can work too. Like you can, hang up the phone and call back. But a lot of times they'll log what happened. Like they'll make logs about they spoke with you and they told you this or that. But when you do a new submission, now the logs seem to be about that submission. So a little trick of mine is that if I don't like the way things are going, I'll just go ahead and send in a new submission. Because if I didn't send a new submission, they'd be like, look, you sent it in, we showed that we talked to you about that, and we shut you down, right? But if I send a new submission, and a lot of times it's the same request that I'm making, but I just word it a little bit different. I just put it to them a little bit different, or give them different reasonings that I have for why, valid reasoning for why they should open it up and get somebody else to take a look at this. And I can't tell you how many times that works for me with State Farm. It's just, State Farm, I find that I used to think they were the best, probably good 20 years ago, 15 years ago. If my client had a State Farm claim, I would be thrilled, right? But somewhere along the line, they've really tightened up. They've really become more and more strict where, if you put 20 feet of drip edge on your estimate, it's really 17 and a half feet. Like they won't approve the 20. Like it must be the 17 and a half. So I find that they spend so much time slicing and dicing up estimates on these little nickel and dime things, but they do seem to pay for the damages. If the damages are accurate and you can prove that with valid documentation and evidence, it does seem like they are approving the claims most of the time. Like I just don't have now it may be somewhat tough to get them to approve hail damage. It's hail damage and they say it's not damaged by hail or wind or something like that, right? That's easy enough. Get another adjuster out there. If it's valid, more times than not, they will pay for it. But when they apply coverage and they start paying for things, but they didn't include enough line items on their estimate, that's the most common, right? But I still have success with them, not like I did in days of old. I still get the success that I seek in the end, but it just takes me more steps to have to go through to get there. So it's really all about how willing are you? Like, how much do you have in you? How much do you want to go through to get these items approved? If they're high dollar items, stick with it, But if it gets down to the point to where, little rain diverter flashings and just tiny little items at the end of it, more times than not, I'll let those go because, time is money. So if I'm on the phone for 3 hours fighting over $20, that just doesn't make sense, right? So how many times should you supplement? As many times as it takes until you get everything that you should get for that project, like validly, accurately so. So it's that's kind of it for State Farm. I always get them to approve the damages, but I might have to do that rinse, wash, repeat, and submit more and more supplements until the end. Now, also, I'm doing all these supplements. I say this many times. I'm doing these supplements before the build. You've got to start the supplements before the build. If you're trying to do all this after you've already built the job, then just already assume that you are going to lose on this deal. Like, you might get some items approved, and I know you probably have in the past, and that's why you're doing it, because you've gotten away with that. But for most insurance companies, if you're trying to bill them after you've built and you've never approached them about any supplemental differences before the build, right on, in State Farm especially, they've got right on the cover page where they reserve the right to inspect these things and to approve them beforehand. Back in the day, that used to be the play. You could go in and you prove it and bill them later, and that would give you leverage. But they've gotten wise to that. They've gotten out ahead of that. It's not as easy to do that anymore. So the winning play right now, the beginning of 2021, in my book, and has been for the last quite a few years now, is to supplement before the build. Hash out these differences beforehand. Agree to get rid of items that you're willing to live with, from your estimate throughout this reconciliation process at the end. And then on items that they're unsure of, prove it with your documentation, prove it with photos, prove it with building codes, prove it with actual facts and proof, right? Evidence. And whatever they don't approve out of that list right there, out of that category, then what I would say is, okay, my job is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I don't believe that I could do this job without doing this, this, and this, these items I'm requesting, and you're not wanting to give them to me, okay? I believe that those items will be necessary to do this job, and apparently you don't. So I'll tell you what, my job is to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you, so I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to go move forward, and I'm going to attempt to make the repairs as you have them prescribed. So I'm willing to remove this item from the estimate at this time, as long as you're willing to revisit this issue, if it is still an issue, when we build, okay? So but I understand if we do have to revisit, and I come back to you again with that, I understand that I'll have to have justification for why that is. So I would plan to have photos and evidence and documentation to back up why that is a problem. But I'm willing to remove the item from the estimate now, provided that you're willing to revisit this issue when it's no longer a hypothetical like it is right now. Before the build, it's just a hypothetical. It's just a fantasy, right? After the build, now it's actual. So all those items that they didn't want to agree, I want to do a very, very good job of documenting everything during the build. Photos of everything, before, after, during, every little thing. You should know, because you approached them before the build, which items they have a problem with. Those are the items that you want to put a spotlight on to prove during the build. Then I approach them again. Okay, job's done. Here's a new estimate for all the items that we actually did, with photos backing it up, evidence, building codes, documentation to prove why, right? And where would I send that? State Farm Fire Claims at statefarm.com. That's how I would do it. Now, this is not the same advice for Allstate, not exactly. It's not the same advice for Liberty Mutual, Nationwide, USAA. There are little differences with those insurance companies that I can't do things the same way that I would with State Farm, right? And for that, you're gonna have to hang on a little longer for the next video that I do on this series, because I'm gonna start really slicing and dicing up each one of these insurance companies and try to provide more value for you guys out there, because I know you need it when it comes to these insurance companies. So shameless plug, iescertified.com, my online training course, over 40 hours of video and audio learning, building codes, forms, documents, over 27 different Xactimate estimates that I wrote. They're templates, they're ESX files, you can use them on your own. It's a ridiculous training course, so if you're not in it, why? It's half off right now. Thank you for watching my content. If you're listening on my podcast, much love to you, the Practitioner Podcast. Check out my other playlists on this channel. What's wrong with this insurance estimate, 10-part series. How I write Xactimate estimates, 5-part series. If you need me, hire me. InsuranceRestorationTraining.com. I love you. Hopefully you can tell I'm leveling up my content in 2021. I'm diving deeper. It's my mission to provide more and more value this year. So I love you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm out.